In this section, I'd like to talk about all the ideas which had prevented me from going to Israel on my own, and especially about the mindset in Germany. During my trip, I got to know a Russian lady who had lived in Germany for several years. Her story and the mindset she came with really astonished me. Okay, let's come back to Jerusalem. Myth 1. That they single out blonde girls at immigration for special questioning, and they can keep you tied up there for 2 hours. This isn't true. I showed them I had a hotel booked and a prepaid return ticket to Moscow, along with an excursion program. They smiled happily as they led me into the country. Myth 2. That it's risky to walk around Jerusalem on your own as a girl. Actually, I really love going on trips on my own. I can relax on my own, and I'm filled with inspiration for all my new projects. Another thing is that if you speak English, you don't have any communication difficulties with unknown people. I'm always interested to find out how people live in other countries and what they think about Russians. New people lead to new experiences. But if you travel in company, you have to factor in what they would like to do, what their interests are, what their timetable is, and how they are feeling today. It's one of the reasons I really wanted to go to Israel on my own, and I never had the slightest regret about it afterwards either. I really recommend learning English and setting off on your travels on your own. Sometimes it can be a bit tricky, but there's so much fun to be had. Now let's come back to myth 2, that it's risky for a girl to walk around in Jerusalem on her own. Of course, for my first 2 days in Jerusalem, I was out on excursions from 9:30 in the morning until 7 in the evening in a group. Maybe on the first day it's interesting, but by the second day it really starts to needle you. In this case, you can just order a taxi from your hotel and the driver will take you wherever you want to go. For the rest of the time, I happily wandered around the city on my own until 6 p.m. Of course, it's best not to wander into the old Muslim quarters and keep to the new areas of Jerusalem. I really recommend the local strawberries. They're great in February. At the Dead Sea in Tel Aviv, I met a lovely lady in her 60s, a widow. Her former husband had been German. After he died, she had returned home to Ukraine, but still continued to receive her substantial widow's pension from Germany. Women get looked after well in Germany. She was able to afford a car for her children on her widow's pension. But there's always a but. Now here's the city of Leipzig in Germany. While in receipt of her widow's pension, when she's 67, she'll receive a larger lump sum. She has no right to seek a new husband or to date any man at all. Germany has a very strict system when it comes to anyone who receives money from the state. This also concerns anyone employed by the state. I'd like to give you her story. Germans work very intensively. Even from childhood, a child is prepared for an independent adult life. They have no catering in their nursery schools. The parents are expected to send their children to nursery with the packed lunch. And even if the parents forget to pack a lunch for their child, it's not allowed to bring it later. Their child has to go without lunch in this case. This is the way Germany prepares its children for independent life. That bringing the lunch becomes the child's responsibility and not the task of their parents. Let's talk about schools in Germany. We all remember the times as kids when we tore a page out of our school books so that we didn't bring bad marks home. And maybe you might get away with that in Germany too. But it will be noted even if nothing is said about it. And a record will be made about it. They can even come to you when you're aged 30 and remind you about it. The idea was that if you were cheating then, perhaps you might be cheating still where you work. At that moment, I was glad that I live in Russia, in freedom. About fines. Sometimes you might be fined unjustly, and you still have to pay the fine, and then try to sort it out afterwards. If not, the unpaid fine will accumulate interest payments. You can't mess around with this stuff. About work. They really work hard. But by the time they are 42, they can become millionaires. Cafes are open from 4 a.m. because people may have to turn up for work very early. If you're on sick leave, but during the sick leave you go to a neighboring country, you still get your sick leave paid. But there's a careful system of staff monitoring. You might get away with it once, and nothing will be said. Try it again, and still nothing will be said. But try it a third time, and you go straight onto the blacklist. Once you are on the blacklist, it is impossible to find work anywhere in Germany because of the blacklist. As far as the stories about the meanness of German men, she said it was another myth. In the wealthy city where she was living, she never saw instances where everyone pays their own share. It means that in restaurants, the bill isn't split between men and women. Her husband also left generous tips every time. She had only the best to say about German men, that they are very attentive, reliable, and kind. If Germans become millionaires or retire, they try, where possible, to immigrate to another country, where they will feel more free. They say that Germany is a good place to earn some money, but it's better to move to another country once you've made your money. It's a very interesting point of view.